Okay, we are back from CitizenCon 2954, and in today's video I want to do a recap. I want to go through everything they covered in CitizenCon, what they announced, what they showed. I'm not going to dive into it in extreme detail. I think that's for the stream itself. If you want to get the most information, go and watch the actual event. I'm sure you already have. This is more of a recap, like reeling off what they showed, my opinions, my thoughts, and also just touching on the really important topics of discussion that we got from the event, if that makes sense. I'm also going to be showing you an office tour. I got to see their Manchester office and it was incredible. They allowed us to take some pictures and I got a bit of a video in there as well. So I'll show that a bit later in today's video. And for any channel members, I will be releasing the full vlogs for the full weekend, Friday to Monday, for members only at some point this week when I get around to editing those. On top of that, I want to talk about Bar Citizen and some of the devs that I spoke to and some of the information I learned from them. Nothing ridiculous or outside of an NDA, of course. They're not going to say anything to jeopardize their jobs, but they gave me some really awesome, unique information. Oh, and also I got to see the Carrack Blast shields coming down, live in action. Dan McCabe from CIG was doing sort of an open display of his work, I guess you would call it. It was really, really cool. Dan's a great guy, such a nice person, and he was kind enough to show us his work. It was day 2 of work. He'd started it the day before, so it was early stages. It's probably all going to change by the time it actually comes out, but it is on the way, and he's already doing a fantastic job. I mean, in one day, it's going to be fantastic. So I'll share some more information on that as well as to what he was explaining to us at the time. But before we jump into that, I'm going to announce the giveaway winner for the M50 that I announced on Twitter and on my YouTube. And that person was M4CEX. Congratulations, you are the winner. I've contacted you via a few methods, via the ways that you entered the giveaway, so thank you very much. I will also be announcing another 2 giveaways in the next couple of weeks. One will be the Anvil Terrapin with the Halloween paint, and one will be the Peregrine, the Saber Peregrine. The Terrapin will go live on the 31st of October for October spooky season. I'm obviously already in my spooky season outfit, and I'll be doing a video about that and I'll announce it in there, and it will be all done through Gleam this time around. I want to try a different approach to my giveaways. But enough rambling, splambling, let's get into CitizenCon 2954. I will not be talking about Squadron in today's video. I won't be diving into that. I filmed the entire reaction to the entire hour and 20-minute long presentation of Squadron 42. I'm going to release it as a separate video so you can kind of watch it along with us and see our reactions, similar to what I did with the weather tech in my previous video. So if you're interested in that, make sure to like, subscribe, hang around. You'll see that later on this week. So CitizenCon, what did we see? Well, we started off with Genesis, which was a huge way to open the show, in my opinion. There was some fantastic stuff we saw there, namely all of the new biomes and the tree tech. So we had jungles, we had swamps. They looked fantastic. I cannot wait for these biomes. I feel like the planets are relatively dead feeling wise, other than microtech, and this is going to exponentially make that better. So I cannot wait for that to come into the game. They also announced seasons, which is incredible. I really hope that winter is like snow on some of the planets, and that we get the terrain changing to be like a snowy terrain, similar to how Microtech is now. Like how GTA 5 does it at Christmas. We also got to see how they're going to be using the new data sets for temperature and soil, depending on location. So certain types of trees will either flourish in their growth or struggle in their growth, depending on the soil quality. This is crazy. And I also think it is the very start of how we'll scan planets. So when we come over to a planet and we sort of do our recce on it and we're scanning the planet for the best place to set up our base or the best place to go and search if we're explorers in our Carracks and Odysseys and whatnot, I think that's the tier 0 level of information that we'll get. I'm hoping that they'll just take that data that they're building that terrain mapping from and allow us to use that to say, oh, that's rich in this ore or this soil. That's my guess anyway. They haven't said that. That's how I would tackle it. Off the back of that, they showed us the updates to the render and texture caching systems, moving a lot of the load over to the GPUs, allowing for a much denser terrain, which looks fantastic. And with that, we're going to get foliage interaction. So when we're walking through bushes or ferns, they'll move and interact with our player's model, which is really immersive and super important. You don't want it to be janky where you just sort of clip through these objects, because it won't look very good. Moving on from there, we got to see Starchitect. I love how they name all of their new tech Star something, and that is the trend for all of it. I love it. It's fantastic. I know this is old news, but I love how they're just continuing. I wish it was Star Genesis, to be honest. But we got to see Starchitect, and it was massive. I mean, it's huge planetary locations in clusters and sectors, which offer up thousands of locations. So to say that a planet will feel empty, it's just no longer going to be the case. Right now, you can fly for many hundreds of kilometers and not really come across anything. Those days will truly be gone, and every planet will feel lived in. And off the back of that, we got to see stealth gameplay. So we got to see how the NPCs will react depending on the amount of light available to them. So when it was dark, they would struggle to see you if you were crouching and moving quietly through the undergrowth or behind cover. And they actually had flashlights that would dynamically help them and assist them to see better. And we got to see sort of tier 0 pets where the fauna was helping them with their night vision, or their better night vision than the human counterparts. So that was really interesting, and hopefully that means pets on the way relatively soon. I know that's not on 1.0's roadmap, so it's unlikely it will be then, but at some point I want a space dog, and I want a space dog on my ship. And then off the back of that, we got to see the NPC cover systems and the cover destruction with Maelstrom. That was really awesome to see how these combat situations will dynamically change and develop, and you'll actually have to think about where you leave your vehicle. You can't just roll in there with a tank and hope for the best. Moving on, we got to see the new lighting systems and how they're going to utilize ray tracing in the game. This one worries me a tiny bit, only because all of us here, all of us gamers, will know that ray tracing is super intensive on our system. I know that Genesis and other systems and other tech they're building is supposed to utilize and optimize gameplay, and I'm sure that's going to be at the forefront of their mind. Just, I know ray tracing is heavy, and I'm not a specialist or a professional in that realm at all, so I'm not going to sit here and say they can't do it. It just worries me a little bit because I've never had a good experience with performance in ray tracing, but visually it looks incredible, as they showed at CitizenCon. And speaking of performance, they also unveiled their new sound tech that is on the way that illustrates the sound of speed, or the speed of sound, as I should have said. I was hoping we'd see the breaking of the sound barrier effect, but I'm assuming that might come later if they can manage it, and if not, it just won't be in the game. But it would be really cool to see that. But we did get to see guns with the delayed sniper and bullet travel, which is something that I've wanted for such a long time. Not many games get this right. In fact, not many movies get this right. Of course, the projectile travels a lot faster than the speed of sound in most cases, unless the ammo is subsonic. So of course you're going to get hit before you hear the shot at certain distances. So I'm really glad to see that the realism of the weaponry is now starting to come into its own. On top of that, we got to see ship gunfire, where the rate of fire seems to increase and decrease depending on how close or far the ship is. Again, great to see. And most importantly, the explosions with the rolling shockwave before the actual blast hits you.
Shockwave and the explosion itself.
So immersive. Imagine seeing your friend's base or another player's base over the horizon, 10, 20 kilometers away, just being bombed by a bunch of A2s, and just seeing or hearing the explosions roll along the canyon. Peak gameplay. I can't wait for that. The immersion's going to be incredible. And then finally, to wrap up Genesis, we got to see the creme de la creme, the chef's kiss of the presentation, in my opinion, which was the new cloud system and the weather systems that they're bringing to the game. This is going to be incredible and super immersive. We got to see the whole storm front rolling in. We got to see the rain actually making the ground wet and changing the terrain entirely, where divots and footprints in mud would then fill up with water and the reflections would be bouncing off of that water. I mean, I don't know any game that does this. The only one I could think of that would even come close is maybe Red Dead Redemption 2, but I don't even think they did that, and their attention to detail was crazy. On top of this, we got to see the wind effects of when the Aurora took off and you saw it buffering and really getting hit by the wind, or buffeting I should say. That was, honestly, it makes me so excited for this new tech. We got to see barrels rolling in the wind dynamically. Again, performance-wise, I'm concerned, but let's hope. That is going to be most of what we saw at CitizenCon this year. It's hopium, but I am high on it and I am loving it. So we're going to continue on a positive note today. Speaking of hopium, if you did want to see that little sprinkle of it, we did a reaction video live at the venue with the live crowd, and it's on YouTube on my channel. It's the video before the one you're watching right now. So if you want to see that, go and watch it after this one. Don't click off yet. We've still got a little way to go. Still at day 2, baby. So moving away from Genesis, we got to see the new org systems that are being built into the game with the new social app. This whole social tab that they're bringing it's all quality of life stuff, but it is absolutely the foundation of what the game needs to assist in the MMO gameplay. Not to mention orgs. I mean, orgs we've been waiting to be brought into Star Citizen for such a long time, and this looks like they're doing it absolutely perfectly, especially with the org paints on ships and the org paints on our armor, all of the org stuff. I mean, there's so much going into that I can't really sit here and talk about it in today's video, because that's like a 20-minute video in itself. But if you want to see more, if you haven't watched the presentation, go and watch it, because it was fantastic. We will momentarily come back to orgs a little bit later anyway, because of base building is a huge part of the presentation on day 2. We'll talk about that in a moment. Whilst we're on the topic of interacting with other players, we also got to see the review systems and beacons. So we got to see reputation based on what help we provide to other players in the game, how we respond to their beacons if we completed it, and if we didn't complete it. We then got to see huge updates to the reputation system in regards to the overarching guilds for each of the different gameplay loops. We've kind of already had this with bounty hunting to an extent, but it's going to be extrapolated on a huge scale, and every gameplay loop will have an overarching guild by the sounds of things, which is fantastic. The amount of thought that will go into each mission you do and who you're doing it for, I think will only get bigger and better. So I'm excited for that. And this brought us towards the end of day 1. We just had a couple more panels left, and this one was a big one. This is where they announced specializations, so basically classes to an extent. Not really, but kind of. They were a lot more forgiving and open to allow you to change on the fly in regards to what you wanted to specialize in, using full armor sets, for example. Or by the sounds of things, being able to change if you were a leader or a sniper or whatever on the fly. So we still probably need a bit more information on that, but what they gave was pretty good, and I think it gave us a good understanding of what direction they're going with the specializations. There's nothing that feels like it's going to be locked off based purely on, as I said, your class or your abilities like most other MMOs, which I'm really happy about, because that's always been a bit of a gripe of mine. So personally, I love the specializations. And then finally, moving on to the moment we've all been waiting for. And no, it's not Squadron yet. It was the Sandworm. The Valakakakaka is back. And gosh damn, did they give us a presentation on that. We will have monster hunting in Star Citizen properly. And it looks like it's going to be varied. There is a lot of monsters on the concept art of what they're planning to add into the game depending on biome. So you won't just have one Valakar. Depending on the biome, you might have different types of Valakar, including this very sus looking cave Valakar that they showed us. Or Valakar, I think I've said that wrong 5 times there. You get the drift. They then topped off that presentation by showing us Area 18's sewers, I think, and they essentially it was dungeons. They showed us dungeons where it will be those sort of boss fights where you enter a classic MMO dungeon, right? You go in, there's really good loot to find in there, and you work your way through levels. So you do a level 1 dungeon 10 times until you complete it, and then you unlock level 2, level 3, level 4, however many levels there are, and each time the loot you find gets better and better, and that is how I'm assuming you'll find the full sets of armor for your specialization, so you can have the best tracker armor, etc. So I'm really excited for this. The only thing I would say, and if anyone from CIG is watching, Death of a Spaceman's a problem with this, which I'm sure they thought about. My advice, if they haven't got a solution, would be to go back to what they initially said about Arena Commander and Star Marine back in the day, where those game modes will still be available in the final version of Star Citizen 1.0, the PU, but they will be entered or accessible via sim rigs. There are sim rigs in the game, or at least there used to be. I actually need to go and check if they're still there. On Orison, in New Babbage, where you get your Mobi-Glass, etc., there are sim rigs. Basically, you're simulating the combat. It's Inception. You're playing a game within a game. That was kind of how they sold it way back in the day. And I feel like that's how they should do the dungeons, in my opinion. Rather than going down there in your real character's body, you should go into a simulation rig. But my point is, Death of a Spaceman, if these dungeons get really difficult and then you die doing a dungeon and you lose everything, kind of feels a bit... The dungeons are a bit arcadey, right? They don't feel like a normal part of the game in regards to the overarching realism of Star Citizen. They feel like an MMO feature, like an arcadey game kind of thing. So to me, it's going to be hard to merge that with Death of a Spaceman. That's how I'm thinking of it anyway. So I'd love to know your comments below if you've got this far in the video. Let me know what you think about that, because I'm struggling to figure out how that would work comfortably in the grand scheme of things. And then we got to see the lovely Nyx system with the asteroid bases such as Delmar and Levski. Again, really incredible bit of the presentation. Nyx looks beautiful. And we all got that moment where the Kraken came out of the hole at Levski and we was all cheering because the Kraken! And then we got onto the beautiful Castra system and the incredible Sherman location. I mean, that whole cinematic with the music was breathtaking, and I cannot wait for that to be in the game. I think everyone collectively said, I'm living there temporarily until we build our own bases. So yeah, Castra looked incredible. Again, much more to come with that in the future. I think next CitizenCon, I'm hoping that Nyx and Castra will be in the game. Honestly, I'm hoping Terra's there as well. I may be very optimistic with that, probably too optimistic. But if we want any chance of 1.0 coming before Squadron, which is 2026, probably the end of 2026, we need those star systems in ASAP. So we'll get to 1.0 at the end of the video, but yeah, that's a big one. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to touch on Squadron 42, which was the end of day one. The crashes aside, I wasn't too concerned. People were saying, oh, classic CIG, blah, blah, blah. But to be honest, crashes can be caused by so many things, including what it sounded like it was, which is an unstable PC. Maybe that was an excuse. I don't think so by the sounds of things, but crashes are so hit or miss on every game out there. I don't think there's been a single game I've never had at least one crash in for one reason or another in all of my PC gaming years. So for me, that wasn't the big deal. The big deal for me, the bit that made me go, oh, that probably shouldn't have happened, was at the very end with the bugs where you could see jittering and jattering and disappearing and reappearing, and then when he tried to hand her the weapon and there was no gun, and then the door didn't work. That entire end to that presentation, we didn't really get to see the end, and that was a shame. And you can't really blame the PC for that, in my opinion. It kind of feels like that was something that shouldn't have been a problem in the game. And that brings us to day 2. Now I'm going to try and rinse through this a lot quicker because I know this video is already getting long and probably a bit boring, to be honest. So let's crack on with day 2 and really drive this ship home. So we started with crafting. Crafting is a huge part of Star Citizen, and it is going to be such an important factor in the MMO side of things. Your suits, your weapons, your ships, the upgrades, the stats, everything is going to come from crafting. And your bases, most importantly. So crafting is such a big feature that we desperately need to make this game what it can and hopefully will be. So this was a really big moment of the day, and they segued very nicely from the crafting into the base building presentations. We all saw that. It looks fantastic. The little sort of drone cart that comes out and then shoots off a survey drone that allows you to place down your base and your builds with the schematics or the blueprints, and then they have to slowly build with the drones that come off of the cart. I love it. I think the way they're going with it is perfect. I was initially worried about base building back in the day, but now seeing this, it's put my mind at ease. I think it's going to be fantastic. Sounds like we're a lot closer to it than I thought, considering they only really started on it last CitizenCon. And of course, you can't have a new feature in Star Citizen without a new ship to support it and to sell on the pledge store. So we had the Star Lancer announcement. Now, this was really cool. It looks fantastic. The Max, the TAC. I mean, everyone loves the TAC because guns. But the BLD for the build variant as well, which is probably the one that's going to be the most important to have. It all looks great. I will say I was waiting for the Odyssey, as I am still waiting for the Odyssey, and I will probably always be waiting for the Odyssey. And when that came up, I was like, oh, Odyssey, for about 2 seconds. And I was like, not Odyssey. Something that looks almost identical. It is what it is. It looks great. I can't wait for it to be in the game. And it's got a purpose to serve, which is why it's here with base building at the end of the day. And speaking of purpose to serve, we got the updated Pioneer. I love how when they revealed this from the old concept version to the new concept version, there was kind of a silence for a few seconds. I don't think anyone knew what to feel. It looks great, in my opinion. I don't know if it looks better. I don't know. It's hard because beauty's in the eye of the beholder and art is art. I don't know which way round I preferred it, but it's irrelevant. That's what we're getting, and it operationally, it works better, and it needed to be done. It looked great. So then this brought us on to... I know this video is long. We're getting there. So then this brought us on to the base building segment where we got to see the setting up of in-game shops and how we're going to be able to sell to other players. So, for example, player trading, all of those mechanics and how that will work. Something I've wanted to do from day one. When I backed the game back in 2013, 2014... one of the first things that I was excited for was building my own little factory somewhere and being the #1 manufacturer for something, whatever it is. And this gives me hope that that can still be a thing. Setting up my base and my little factory and building one item until I get it to the top level tier, just really focusing on something that no one else is focusing on, and then selling that. So everyone goes, GFA sells the best pistols, the highest tier, highest quality. He's your pistol guy. Go to X planet to go and find his pistol shop. That is what I love the idea of. And this moment made me so happy to see this in game and sort of the plans that they're going to put in the game. So can't wait for that. And not only shops, we got to see farms and ranches. We will be able to wrangle ourselves some space cows and set up a farm and sell their milk. I don't know. I don't know what they deposit yet. Maybe it's something like what Luke was drinking in Star Wars. But yeah, we're gonna have some ranchers out there, which again, I'm all for it. Give me my mullet and my cowboy hat and my robot horse. Or real horse. Do you reckon we could ride animals? They haven't said anything about this yet. Imagine if we could ride space horses. Now, of course, we can't have our luscious ranches and our sprawling bases without adequate defense, and we got onto our defense systems, how we'll have to have turrets and walls and shields and really think about that. Really awesome to see how we will have to defend our base in those low law sectors. It's where there's no security and nothing protecting you from other players. And then, of course, it could not be CitizenCon without a ship segment. Ships. And it was a ship segment where they spoke about the upcoming... Well, firstly, they spoke about the previous CitizenCon ships that they said they were going to be bringing in the next 12 months and what ones they didn't manage to bring. They made a promise that they will still deliver on a few ships they didn't manage to get out before the end of this year. So that means we should still be getting all but one. I think it was just the Liberator, if I remember correctly. Is it the Liberator? Nope, sorry, not Liberator. The Legionnaire. That's what I meant. So the Legionnaire is the one thing that will not be making it into this year's ship release from their previous list, which is a shame, but I'm sure we'll get it in due course. And then they went on to explain the next 12 months of some, and they emphasized some of the ships that they're working on and planning to release next year. And they showed us this beautiful sort of presentation of all these different ships behind this dimly lit background. Again, they did this last year as well. Someone then took that and put text over all of the images and gave us an idea of what they probably are or most likely are. I'm pretty certain that these are all accurate, but, you know, never say never. And that brings us pretty much to the end of CitizenCon. The last bit was the road to 1.0. Now, this was a huge segment. I'm going to touch on this very briefly because I know this is a long video. The idea behind 1.0 and the release of Star Citizen is, as they said at the presentation, to have no more resets, so no more wipes, which is huge. Minimal bugs. That's a difficult one with Star Citizen. So that's going to be the main thing that delays it, in my opinion. I just hope that they can get 1.0 to us ASAP, as we all do. We just want to play the game, as they want to as well. But yeah, there's a long way to go. Finished gameplay loops is another thing that they want to make sure is in there before 1.0, and optimized gameplay. It's all stuff. It's all stuff that is needed to make the game a game, but it's all stuff that's going to take a long time. Coming with 1.0, we have 5 star systems instead of 100. I'm fine with that. I'd rather have 5 fully populated star systems than 100 empty star systems that we can't do anything in. I want exploration to be a big part of the game, and the whole idea of the Carrack is jump point mapping. So unfortunately for Carrack lovers, you've got a long wait before your gameplay really makes it into the game, because scanning jump points and everything, if there's only 5 places to go and only 5 systems, then you're not going to have any jump points to try and navigate and find, to be honest. So that's a shame, definitely. We got to see an update on how insurance and warranty is going to work. I'm not going to talk about that at all. There was a really good post by Jared who went into the detail on that. I'll link that below, so if you're interested in learning about the insurance updates, go and view Jared's post of Spectrum. Really good bit of information there from him, so check that out. I'm not going to do it any justice by rambling on for longer than this video needs to be about that. And finally, we got to see space stations. Really important part of the presentation and huge information for orgs. I think it's probably a bit much for solo players, but the fact that we're going to be able to build space stations is crazy. There's, again, so much to talk about on that. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it today because this video is already too long, and we've still got the office tour to talk about. But it's going to be fantastic when they're in the game, and we can craft a Bengal carrier, which was an absolute jaw-dropping moment of the presentation. So really looking forward to that. Okay, and breathe. That is the end of the CitizenCon panels and presentation recap. So we're not going to talk about that any further. We're going to really quickly now move on to the studio tour and the conversations that I had with devs at Bar Citizen, etc. I'll start with the Bar Citizen stuff because the studio tour stuff's a bit vloggy, so we'll get to that in a minute. So I was talking to a dev on the Friday night at Bar Citizen, where all the devs were out and mingling with all of us backers, and it was really nice evening. And this dev said to me the exact word. I mean, we spoke about loads of stuff. The one thing he did say, and I think everyone can take this away if you've made it this far in the video today, he said, we are so far past 4.0 in development already, and we are so far past what you're going to see tomorrow, i.e. Saturday, CitizenCon. We'll move on to the studio tour. Now, as I said, I will be doing the full vlogs over for channel members to watch, because I want to give you guys a bit more of a personal look of the moment of what was going on. But I will put the studio tour in here, as I promised. I'll put in pictures. You'll be having pictures on the screen right now, and you'll get to see the video that I took. So we went in, and there were a few floors that we got to see within the actual office building. We got to see obviously all their computers and desks and such, and their actual workstations, which is really nice. And we got to see sort of their breakout area and sort of their recreational area, which was really nice to see as well. The main thing that I would say about their studio tour is everything's themed, which was incredible. That one floor was themed after Grim Hex, where this picture was taken, and there was a lot more going on behind us that we weren't allowed to take pictures of. But it was crazy. It looks so cool in there, and yeah, I mean, if I could work in one place in my full-time job, it would be there. I mean, it was insane, just insane. And then we got to go to the next floor and see their breakout area, which is essentially where they have lunch, etc. And this is where we were allowed to vlog because there's no chance of us accidentally catching a glimpse of anything sensitive or NDA'd. So this was like a floor of Horizon, or Horizon, however you want to say it. And I mean, it blew my mind. These models that were on the walls and this pink tree, it was just, it was so nice. This coffee area, yeah. Again, insane office. I'll put the video in here so you can watch it, because me talking about it's probably not doing any justice. This is a weird part of the vlog, but we're currently in the CIG offices in Manchester, and we're not allowed to film too much, but they've let us have free reign up here, and it is absolutely amazing. Have a look. Have a look. The best thing is just look down the old. Right, I need to not get in the way of everyone else. So this is their breakout area where they have food and stuff and get to chill out when they're having their lunch. This is where the staff come and hang out and chill out, which is a really lovely area, obviously themed after Horizon or Horizon. Jared was saying that each developer calls it something different between the two of those, but I mean, I wish I had a coffee area like this at work. I live off of coffee, but mine is not as fancy as this. It's a kettle with loads of lime scale, a couple of tea bags, but it's goodness me. Yeah, I think if I lived near Manchester, I'd probably do anything I could to try and get a job with CIG. It would be so rewarding. From here, we went over to see their motion capture studio, which I learned, and I'm sure many of you already know this, but I learned that it was the largest motion capture studio in the UK, which is crazy. And it was the sound treatment in there. It was like walking into a vacuum. There's just no echo. It was really, really nice. And I can see why they get such good animations and stuff, because, I mean, they have the perfect studio for it. So that was really nice to see. And then we went over to the final studio where they showed us the set of ISC. Personal highlight for me, seeing Jared's set, where he does the videos, being able to take pictures and videos if we wanted. I didn't take a video, but I did take a few pictures, and they'll be on screen now. Oh, what a beautiful moment. And what can I just say whilst we're on this topic? What an absolute gentleman and lovely person Jared is. Obviously, I don't know him personally, but from the time that I did get to spend with him, his manners and his just the vibes that he gives out are so positive. He just seems like a really good guy. So yes, it was a fantastic weekend, such a good event. I cannot express how happy I am with the state of how things are at the moment and how things are going. The devs are in good spirits. And if there's one thing I can assure you from what I did learn, which I probably can't elaborate on, is that this game will definitely be supported for many years to come, and way beyond 1.0. where this game will continue to develop and grow, just like Chris said at the end of the show. That's not bullshit. I know that for a fact, and I'm here for it, and I'm really excited for it. And that's it. We are going to leave it there. If there's anything else you want me to talk about, please let me know in the comments below. But I think this would be the last video I do on CitizenCon. I've rambled for a very long time, and I'll leave it there. So thank you ever so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Make sure to keep tuned for all the giveaways that will be coming to you this year, for the end of this year. And the next video is a really fun one. I'll see you in the verse. I'm very exhausted. I've been talking non-stop for about an hour. Peace.